Thank you, Esther.
Thank
And
you.
thanks for inviting me. And I need to qualify the joke, which I was trying to say earlier on. I just want to be very clear about what the joke was. The joke was that my body has grown while lockdown has happened. And I feel like I'm inside, I'm a thin person inside a larger person's body. And as I was in foster care myself, I was talking about being the foster child inside the larger foster child's body, which is like I am now. However, I'm not a foster child. I am a fully grown adult, and being a fully grown adult has got there is some responsibility to yourself as a child, and to who you thought yourself to be as a child, and to the experience that you had as a child, and the relationships that you had within childhood, that is, with your parents and your siblings, if you have them, and your entire story. In other words, as an adult, you form more of a relationship with your childhood than you did as a child. As a rule, you're a child for 18 years, legally speaking. But you have a relationship with your childhood for a lot longer throughout your adult life. And therefore, the experiences that you have as a child, I believe, are actually manifest more in adult life than they actually do in childhood. That's quite incredible. It means that the effects that we have on the children that we work with will not necessarily show themselves while we're with them, but in their adult life, when we get no payback, really. And parents might say the same thing, right? Parents might say that they look after their children and their children become adults and there's less of a payback. But that's not true. That's not true of parenthood. Sorry, I just started where I started. My name is Lemn Sissay, if you've not heard of me, and there's no reason that you should have, except for I've been visible over the past year for two reasons. One is because of my book, and more recently because of a documentary that I made on on BBC One about my life called The Memory of Me, and also a documentary which I made on Channel 4, which is called Super Kids, which was about getting young people who were in care to write poetry, and also, and then they performed it on stage in front of their foster parents, and also in front of their birth parents, and in front of the social services, etc. That was in Coventry. We're in a pandemic at the moment, and many of us have started to experience what it is like to not be touched by the people that we love, and to not be able to touch the people we love. I've been judging the Booker Prize, which is the largest prize in fiction for writing in the English language in the world. And one of the judges spoke about how she couldn't visit her mother in England, and how important it was for her to visit her mother, so that because her mother was slowly starting to experience dementia, and this woman, my friend, was worried that the pandemic would mean that her mother may never remember her when she sees her again. That she may be forgotten by her own mother, and that she won't have time to see her mother in time for her mother to remember who she was. And that was a real fear for my fellow judge. That's the Booker Prize I was speaking of, one of the judges and her fear about not being remembered by her mother. I've just been the judge of the National Portrait Gallery's national exhibition called Hold Still, which was chaired by the Duchess of Cambridge, who herself is a photographer. And we had 31,000 entries from all over the country. Bear with me. This is totally linked with you as a foster parent, with fostering, and with me as a foster child who's an adult, and with wounds and with healing. In the exhibition, by the way, I had a 2.5 Zoom meeting with the Duchess of Cambridge, which was very surreal, but that's another story. But in this exhibition, which I looked over last week, and it became, it was in the newspapers last week, and it's going to travel around the country, including to the Midlands. It was full of people who experienced the inability to touch. So there were mothers, grandmothers with their hands on windows, and showed their granddaughters kissing the window on the other side. There were photographs of newborn babies. There was one of a newborn baby, umbilical cord still attached to the mother or just been cut, and the baby was behind a plastic sheet that was protecting it from the mother. And the nurse had put the baby on the mother's breast, and the photograph is from above here, showing the baby's face trying to kiss the mother through plastic sheet, and the mother was wearing a face mask, having just given birth to the child. You can see this exhibition yourself, just by going online, Googling Hold Still, Duchess of Cambridge, National Portrait Gallery, whatever, and you can find it. And it is extraordinary, and it shows you how important touch is and how this pandemic has separated us from each other physically, and how that sense of possible toxicity affects us emotionally, and how important we have realized that moment really is. And how moving those photographs are. So when I was judging it, the Duchess's people sent me some criteria. And it said, you may need to take a break when you're judging these photographs so that we can come up with the final 100. And I thought, why do I need to take a break? I've traveled, I've had big, I know I'm strong, why would I? By the way, why I would equate being strong with not being emotionally engaged. That's the first thing to question. They asked me to take a break. They said, you may need to take a break when you look at these photographs. They may be emotional. And I thought I was emotionally strong by saying, well, don't worry about me, I'll be all right. That's not strength. That's defensiveness. That's fear of being emotionally engaged. That's what that is. But where I was brought up in Lancashire, you were strong if you didn't show your emotions. But always remember this. This is worth remembering. The act of not showing your emotions is an emotional statement. It is in and of itself an emotional statement. If you don't acknowledge that you're holding yourself in check, then you're utterly emotionally engaged. We're never not emotionally engaged. You can tell yourself logically, you can say, well, no, I am not emotionally engaged with this situation. That is an emotional state that you've just placed. Nobody gets out of this alive. What I mean by that is that we are all involved all of the time. And anybody who's a parent knows that. You know that your child may hold something against you, right? even when you didn't do anything. Your child might be in therapy in years to come for things that you didn't even know you did as a parent. The privilege of having a family is that you can hold a gripe against them forever. That's the privilege of having a family. The privilege of having a family is that you don't have to resolve that great gripe you've got. You can hold it forever. You can build a family on that. You can have a house on that. You can be so angry with your dad for not being a good dad that you can build a house on it. You can get a job on it. You can pass your degree on it. The full works. Why would you want to forgive him for that? Look what you've done. Anyway, that's a big deal, what I've just said, because what it says is that families are always breaking rules. They're always getting it wrong and getting it right. We carry what we are against in our families for our entire lives. We build our personalities on it, and then we pretend that all families are always okay. They're not. Things fall apart all of the time. In my belief, the care system isn't far from any of us. But anyway, that's another matter. Some of you are thinking, where is he going? Exactly. That has got to be the point. Everything is involved in all of this all of the time, I'm afraid, and it is handleable. But let me bring me back to the pandemic and to touch and to the National Portrait Gallery exhibition of people yearning for touch. That was the one through point from that entire exhibition. That is precisely the experience of being in care. That sense that everything that you've known may never be the same again, that other people are making the rules and that you're not sure that they know what they are doing. I'm not talking about foster parents here, I'm talking about the wider care structure. That sense that although everybody is doing the best, you know they are, you know that there is no politician that wants the worst to happen for us. None. There's no government minister that thinks, forget them, let's just do what's right for us lot in here. They're trying their best. There's no NHS worker. There is nobody that is just basically thinking, I want to do the worst for everybody right now in this pandemic. That doesn't mean to say that good things, that mistakes are not being made. And that doesn't mean to say that everybody in society right now thinks, yeah, everybody's doing the best, so let's leave it at that. We're in good hands. There's a lot of you and a lot of us that feel like we're not. We're not in safe hands. Should it be joy of 6? Should it be 6 people? Should it be 6? Should it be 12? Should it be 3? That's how I felt when I was in care. I felt like I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure that the people around me were sure. What we are experiencing here in this pandemic is the possibility of understanding how other people feel in isolation. That's disabled people. That could be trans people. That could be black people. People who feel that other people are not understanding how vulnerable they feel. That idea that you might be toxic, that feeling, who else might have that? Could that feeling be something that a child in care has felt? Because the people at school say that there's something wrong with them because they're not with their own mum and dad? Could that feeling of that it might be catching what they have? This pandemic is a way of us being able to understand what it is like to be in a minority around people who are pretending that they know better. It's a great opportunity for us. Right, first I should tell you, I'm not a foster parent. That I should tell you that I'm not a social worker. I should tell you that I have no qualifications as a professional through university. I should tell you that I don't pretend that I've got any of those things. That we need professionals in this industry. We need social workers. We need foster parents. Deeply, we need foster parents. And so what I was trying to do there is to show you that this pandemic, the idea of not being touched, for example, was one of the things that I experienced when I went into care, when I went into children's homes. And I know that some young people experience that while in foster care, that not being touched by an adult who is caring for you is a thing. It is a thing. Imagine for a second, if you can, what your child would experience, your own child, by not being hugged. It's unthinkable of you that you would not hug or touch your own birth child. By the way, I know that some of you in foster care will touch your children, will hug them, will blah, and I know that some of you won't, and I know that there'll be some of you will have your social workers saying, I'd rather you didn't touch the child, and some of you will have your social workers saying, well, it's okay, as long as you don't tell us about it. I'm not pretending to be across the policy for this particular area, but I do know that it changes from family to family sometimes, from social worker to social worker sometimes, from official policy to unofficial policy across the country, across the United Kingdom actually. There are some people who break the rules, but I would say to me that the nature of the family house is a place where rules are broken all of the time. To think. It's like basically, it's, I guess as a parent, and I'm not a parent either, but as a parent, grandma gives kids sweets when she shouldn't. You know what I mean? So does granddad, you know what I mean? When his daughter's out, he gives his granddaughter or grandson the sweets that he knows they shouldn't have. Rules are broken in families all the time for all the best reasons. And to pretend that that's not true is to not understand the nature of family. I mean, to pretend that that's not true is to set people up to fail. I've always believed that dysfunction is at the heart of all functioning families. I might have said this before, and I'll say it again. Dysfunction is at the heart of all functioning families. And let me give you an example of dysfunction. I've been wearing these headphones for this entire conversation, but I can't hear myself through them, and I don't need to hear you through them. I don't need them on. What? Absolutely don't need. But I was saying that dysfunction is at the heart of all functioning families, and if you don't believe me about that, Christmas dinner. A healthy family has got secrets, things that it doesn't want to talk about. It's got, I think the most powerful example of that is that you get an entire family, all the different generations in one room at a time, and you ask each one of them all at the same time to tell the person who's hurt them what they did. It could be a father, it could be a sister, a brother, or an aunt, an uncle, it could be a mother, it could be the fact that you never thought you were the favourite, you thought your dad, had a different favourite, and that he wasn't you, and that your sister didn't even realise that she was the favourite, and that she always did have it a little bit better than you. and that you always got blamed, that she didn't. By the way, your sister will feel the same way. Your sister will have something like that against somebody else in the family. She'll feel like that actually, because she was the favourite, she couldn't do any wrong. Because she couldn't do any wrong, nobody could actually see her. But you don't feel that way because you feel that she was the favourite, and that was bad enough for you because you were in her shadow. Blah 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 blah. Everybody's got one, and on one day they're all going to bring out that one issue against that one other person. Thing that's just never been spoken about, but is big. I'll tell you what, on that day that happens in your front room, somebody's going to get sectioned. The police might have to be called. Definitely we'll have to bring in the social worker. Can you imagine a social worker walking into the room on the day of that scene when everybody speaks about the one betrayal that they feel happened in their family? They have it out. Your dad left you. You know, the fact that he was, he emigrated from one country to this one for a better life for you is not the point. He was never there for you, and you're going to have that out with him. Bring a social worker into that room at that time. Somebody's going into care. The care system's not far from any of us. Dysfunction is at the heart of all functioning families, all brilliant families. All brilliant families. And let me share this with you, and I'm going to get to scars and to wounds, but around that dysfunction is the PR company of family. Esther, did I talk about this last year, 2 years ago? No, fantastic. Let me do this, because around that dysfunction that's at the heart of all functioning, beautiful, powerful families, around that is the PR company of family. And the PR company of family says to everybody else, there's nothing wrong with our family. Don't you say anything bad about my mum. Don't you say anything bad about my dad. Right? It starts at school, doesn't it? The PR company. It's like, don't you dare. Don't you dare. It doesn't matter how terrible your dad or your mum might be. Nobody can say anything bad about your family. So this PR company denies that there's any dysfunction. Won't have it said. You're so busy buying that sofa from John Lewis that you couldn't, because John Lewis are not advertising to the dysfunctional family. You'll never see an arguing family on their adverts. You'll never see a teenage kid saying, Mum, I'm going to tear up this sofa, I don't care. You'll never see a kid saying, I don't care if I'm bringing my smoky smell from having cigarettes into the front room. You'll never see that on the adverts. They advertise to the PR company of family. And there's almost nothing wrong with that, because that's what a market would do. It wants us to believe the untruth. Now, why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because a child in care and a social worker are living, walking proof of the dysfunction at the heart of all functioning families. They're walking proof of the truth of family. That is that things do fall apart. And they fall apart in all of our families. And pretending that they don't fall apart is the big lie. We've all got, an uncle or an auntie that nobody will talk about, or a side of the family that we don't talk about, that we won't have talked about at the Christmas dinner. Let's not talk about our Uncle Jerry and prison. No, I don't mean that, but I mean, it's all there in all of our families, and what I'm trying to say to you is that the child in care is a threat quite often to other people because they remind them that things can fall apart. And so you'll have people criminalizing young people in care. You'll have them talking about us as if we are a threat, as if we are intrinsically toxic. Okay? And what happens when that happens? If you show a child that they're constantly toxic, they're going to react. And by the way, never mind the foster care, the foster home is the haven of hope in the middle of all of this. because that's what happens at school. That's what happens on the street. That's what happens with the police. That's what happens with the... Do you know who takes more drugs? Who steals more? Who does inappropriate things? Who takes drugs mostly? It's not kids in care. It's your birth children. They're the most people who do the stealing are them. Yeah, but when they steal from a Tesco shop, you don't call the police. You don't. You discuss it. Your partner, and you discuss whether you're going to call the police. And you both say, no, this is the stage they're going through. We need to work through this. Oh, believe me, I would love to tell you. I would love to be sat here now thinking, I'll tell you what, they do call the police. That's the first thing that they will do when their child has been caught stealing from Tesco's. You don't. You break the law. Dysfunction is at the heart of all functioning families. You break the law. You don't shop your own child. You have a discussion with your partner, with yourself. How can we get through this issue with this incredible child of ours? What is happening? What have we done? What have we said? Etc., etc. And you try to find a solution. You improvise, and you see how it goes. And you somehow get through. If a child in care is caught stealing, from my experience as a child in care, but also, I've got to say, the experience of children who've been in care recently, the police are called. I know we're more aware of this now than ever before. This is the most exciting time to be in care is now in my entire life. That's in my opinion, and I know you're all on the front line here, but that is criminalization of children in care. That's what criminalization is. By the time the kids come to you, they've got a criminal record, possibly, and they're 15, and they're an obvious problem waiting to happen. And it's not about anybody else anymore. It's not about criminalization. That's some liberal idea. It's their fault. See, this is how prejudice works. It builds a case against who it is already prejudiced against. And this is what happens in terms of race. A case is built against you. If I tell you you are aggressive, your response will be aggressive. The fact, if I tell you you're aggressive, the fact that you respond with passion is aggression. You've proved my case. I'm a black man. Whenever we're passionate, we're accused of being aggressive. When we respond by saying, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute, we're being aggressive, so we're proving the case. You see, this is how prejudice works. It builds a case to prove its case. And that's what happens to young people in care. And by the way, that is also what happens to social workers. Because social workers are also walking, living proof that, that dysfunction is part of a functioning family. So even when a social worker can walk into a family and say, I'm here to help you, they'll be like, screw you. Of course they are. They have a prejudice against somebody who's identifying the basic truth of families, that things go wrong. One of the greatest acts of independence that I made when I left care was to ask for help. It's one of the beginning parts of healing. And it's one of the most important aspects of diversity. Is if you want to know about other cultures, go and ask somebody from that culture. If you want to know about, walk into a hairdresser, the Caribbean hairdressers, and ask somebody about hair. And say, look, I've got this child, they're from a different culture than me. and I really want to give them the best, and they deserve to know. And make yourself vulnerable, because whenever you are faced with something that you don't know, you have to be vulnerable to get to know it. You know, I'm a poet, I'm a writer, and I travel the world as a writer, and I am the big I am in my industry. I'm judge of this and this. I need to, if I want to grow, I need to read books and I need to learn. And I feel like as I grow as a man and I become professional and I become the person who is the speaker. I'm speaking now, aren't I? I'm the speaker. I'm Lemn Sissay, the speaker. I need to learn as well. I need to listen, and that's making yourself vulnerable. I'm not the big I am. I've got to ask, and I've got a lot to do on that front. And I think that's the same vulnerability that one feels, that you may feel, in thinking, how do I help this child? Well, it's not actually complicated, but you do have to make yourself vulnerable. And you learn a lot about yourself as well. And actually, I find that when I go into different cultures, I find that I am enhanced. My life is enhanced. I think that fostering an adoption is one of the most important actions that one human being can do for another, because a child will test you at every level. I should just say that I was talking about the prejudice, wasn't I, that was set against the child in care, and then I was talking about the prejudice that is set against somebody of colour. And what's happened over the pandemic, you know, the untouchable, where we have been, thank you very much, where we have been, we've started to realise how important touch is and how important it is not to feel isolated. Oh gosh. Can you just remind me, Esther, where I was?
You was talking about being vulnerable. Like you were going into hairdressers and you were started talking about being carers being vulnerable to learning about other people's cultures, diversity.
Yes, the pandemic. Sorry, the pandemic, yes. and also race and the prejudice that is meted against children in care and against social workers, and that the only way out of that experientially is to connect with the solutions, and the solutions are connecting with other races, and also we need facts and stuff to counter some of this prejudice. So let me give you an example, and it's a clear one, and I've said it many times before, but it's worth knowing, is that Harry Potter was a foster child, Superman was adopted, Cinderella was kinship fostered, that fostering and adoption and functioning dysfunctional families are at the heart of popular culture. If you're a Christian, for example, it is not unfair to say that Jesus had two dads. Think about it. I know one of you is be thinking, I don't know whether he should have said that, but actually think about it. It's true. And just imagine how difficult it may have been for one of those fathers to accept that the other father was not only not there, but it was an immaculate conception. And imagine for a second that you are a social worker assessing the family of Jesus and whether that's actually a good family for the child, given that they'd sort of given birth to him in a stable. But the basic truth is, against the prejudice which I've seen in our society against young people in care, set against them, the basic prejudice truth is that I believe that they are actually incredible. They're incredible human beings, and that that the children's writers had it right that Harry Potter is an incredible human being, quite dysfunctional as well. You know, he ran away a lot. He argued with adults inappropriately. He spoke to them inappropriately as well. Superman was always looking for fires to put out. And they're actually throughout popular culture. So it's worth looking at the stories that most families tell their children at night to get them to sleep and stuff, and start to see, oh, there's a foster child right in the middle of it. James and the Giant Peach, I think Pinocchio was kinship fostered. Many of them are from families which are dysfunctional. Families which are where there's only one parent, or where there's two parents and they're terrible. Matilda is a good example. There's loads. Matilda was fostered by her teacher, I think. So you'll see a lot of incredible foster parents in popular culture. I'm going to use Harry Potter as an example again. There's good foster parents in there, and there's bad foster parents in there. One of the things that I was trying to tell you before, which I didn't, and I'm going to stop soon, I think, I don't know, is this. It's that, oh gosh, it's gone. It's gone. Yes, it's this. It's that if you have a child yourself, you will, whatever your weak spot is, we've all got them, your child is going to press that button. I'm talking about your own child, your birth child. So let's say your weak spot is money. Okay, you might be a multi-millionaire, it doesn't matter. Your weak spot is money because you didn't have it when you were a child, or whatever. You know, you can't look at your own bank account because there's too much in there, and you don't know what, it makes you feel insecure. It doesn't matter. I'm not trying to say that you've not got money or that you have got money. I'm saying your weak spot's money, and that's not dependent necessarily on how much you've got. Your own birth child is the one who's going to go, give me money. I want money. I want your money. You have money, you give me money. What is your weak spot? Is your weak spot your mother? You know, your mother. You've always had a really difficult relationship with your mother. Your birth child, or your adopted child, is the one who's going to go, Grandma, I love Grandma. Grandma gives me things. You don't give me things. Grandma gives you. And therefore, adopting a child has got to be the greatest thing that a human being can do for another, because a child will test you emotionally, financially, spiritually, politically, on everything, in your relationships. Is that your weak spot, the actual relationship with your partner? Your child is going to push that button. So an adopted child will do exactly the same thing. And I'm afraid a foster child may do the same thing as well, even if it's for a short period of time. And yet, unfortunately, because of the prejudice which remains unchallenged in society, and yet it is the foster child that often takes the blame. It's them that become passed on from one parent to another, and them that are told that they are the challenging ones. And yet family is basically a challenging environment for all of us all of the time. Oh my God, why would you invite somebody else into that? I'll tell you why you would. Because you're incredible. Because foster parents are incredible human beings. To bring somebody into that environment and offer them a version of love, which is what that child needs at that time, is the most incredible thing that one human being can do for another. And you move me deeply. And we need you out there. We need you right on the front line. We need you facing all of these vulnerabilities. We need you working through your stuff. We need you fighting for those children who need somebody to fight for them. And we need you fighting for yourselves so that you can fight for those young people. We've never needed you more than ever than now. that in the middle of this pandemic, the fact that you can cope with talking to both social workers who may not fully understand the situation. Why should they? They're doing the best they can, but they can't necessarily understand it fully. But you can use them as a sounding board, a place to work through stuff. But the fact that you can do that, as well as look after the child, is the most moving, extraordinary, kind, giving thing that I think a human being can do for another, and I salute you. And that's me. That's me. That's the person who was given with, foster parents that really did not work, and that that were not necessarily good. They tried their best, and their best was terrible. But I know how much I needed foster parents, and how badly they did. But I know too many people, too many wonderful adults who were brought up with foster parents. And the worst thing about prejudice, because they had an okay time. The worst thing about prejudice is that they're growing into adults ashamed of saying that they were fostered as children. That's what prejudice is. It says that your experience is not valid in this room. You see? And that's why I wrote my book. And I'm not, this isn't about selling books. It is the Sunday Times #1 bestseller. I don't need to sell it. It sells itself. The point is that the worst thing that I think that happens in foster families and adopted families is that you're not allowed to make mistakes. Mistakes are part of what a family is all about. You should be allowed to make mistakes. You should be allowed to get it wrong and then get it right, and then, with the same person. Give yourself that break. Be kind to yourselves, most of all. One of the reasons that any system is cruel, any system, it could be education, it could be getting your kids into school, it's because it's not that it's cruel, it's that it lacks kindness. It's that kindness starts not to become part of the equation of caring, and it has to be. And that actually has got to do with all levels of communication, in my opinion. That is social worker to social worker, that is, line manager to staff, that's the full works. That's a whole other story. I said in my book, my name is Why. I said in my book, there's one line in it which I came to many years ago, and it's been written on walls, and I'd love somebody to tattoo it onto their arm. It'll happen one day. I've got some of my poems are tattooed onto people's arms. I'm a poet, by the way. I didn't mention that earlier on. But the line is that I am not. Let me just give you the story behind the line, and it's this. I realized that part of my job as an adult telling my story was of showing my scars. But I realized actually that is not the definition of who I am, and that will not be the definition of any success I may have. I am not defined by my scars, but by the incredible ability to heal. In other words, the moment a scar happens, it begins to heal. We may not acknowledge the beginning to heal because of the pain, but that is essentially what's happening. And therefore, I am not defined by my scars, but by the ability to heal is a way of showing the journey that I'm on. I'm not trying to get over something, to under something, around it. I'm not trying to avoid speaking of something. I am in the process of healing. And what is beautiful about that is that we are all in the process of healing in one way or another. And what this means is that the child in care, the foster child, the foster parents, the foster family, they're not aliens at the end of the street. They're not doing something unusual and out there. No, they're helping somebody heal. They're helping the collective society heal its wounds, its familial dysfunctions that have got so far out of hand that we need to do something. You, as foster parents, are the equivalent of the emotional NHS, dealing with major surgery, and we need you in this pandemic and every day. Anyway, I don't know how long I've done. I can't even remember what time I started.
No, that's fine. Do you have any last thoughts that you'd like to share?
That I'd like to share.
Yeah.
In the middle of this conversation, a technical hitch happened on my side, and it is quite extraordinary that happened, but it did. These things are sent to test us and to try us, but it is often not as much about the problem as it is how we deal with it.
Mm.
And yeah, so there's a lesson learned there.
Yeah. There is.
What time did I start?
Just 20 past.
20 past.
11.
So I am exactly on time then to have ended exactly where I was.
Yes, brilliant.
Wonderful.
But like just some comments and things that have come out, and so you at the very beginning you talked about your Christmas dinner project that you do.
Oh yeah. No, it's all right. No, it's just a lovely man who actually gave me the space to speak here. Sorry.
Well, throughout you had a lovely man behind you.
Yeah,
through the window.
Yeah, that was him. Yeah.
Brilliant. So
yeah,
you talked about your Christmas dinner project last time. You mentioned it this morning, and so how is that project going? And now that we're in lockdown and things are being done virtually, how are you planning to make that still happen, if you still are?
Yeah. So the Christmas dinners, I mean, I wasn't mentioning this, I didn't mention it in this talk. I mentioned Christmas dinner, but not the Christmas dinners.
That's right.
The Christmas dinners are a Christmas dinner on Christmas Day for people between the ages of 18 and 25 who've left care. And what they get is they get a meal, a top meal, by the way, by a top chef. They get an afternoon, Christmas Day, Christmas Day and evening in a venue. They get presents. They get picked up in a taxi and dropped off in a taxi. Yeah, and we just create a wonderful memory for them, and it is the best thing that I ever did. It started in 2013. We did one in Manchester, and last year there were 17 across the United Kingdom. Scotland, Birmingham has a Christmas dinner. Manchester, Canterbury, Cambridge, Oxford, Liverpool, Wirral, Stockport, Cheshire. And in every city or area, a group of people start meeting now. So September, October, and it's mainly women. I've got to say, it's like 95% women. That's just how it's worked out. And they're meeting now on Zoom meetings around the country, and they put on a Christmas dinner, and they start to organise those things that we've just spoken about, I've just spoken about, right up to Christmas Day. So this year, most of us are going to do what the most successful people have done in the pandemic, and that is to have done our best in the worst case scenario. So in other words, I think most of the Christmas dinners are now going to be hampers that are delivered to the young people's houses between 18 to 25. Unfortunately, one of the most important things about the Christmas dinner for the young people, some of them would be in halfway houses, some of them would be living in very small venues. Unfortunately, one of the problems that we've got is that many of them want to be away from their homes. Many of the young people between 18 and 25 are not in accommodation that they want to be in on Christmas Day. So all of the meetings, the people who are meeting around the country are discussing between themselves how they're going to make the Christmas dinner happen. And I can't be responsible for that, and neither can the foundation that helps them. Each one of them is going to find their own way of doing it. Okay. We're not a national organisation. My foundation, which is the Gold from the Stone Foundation, is a charity which provides for anybody who sets up a Christmas dinner for care leavers, and that is even care leavers' Christmas dinners organised by the social service. We will give money to.
Okay, brilliant.
Yeah.
As you was talking about it, you were so excited. So I know it's really something that you're really passionate about.
Look, it's autonomous. So, for example, let me give you an example. Costs would be, say, in total, altogether, I would say it would be like £70,000 to £100,000 for each Christmas dinner. We do it for nothing. We get the best presents. By the way, we don't get presents which are secondhand we get the best presents. Okay, like, we don't just get food. It's important. There's no food being served out of a hatch. We get the best food. So the idea is this group of people that meet in October, they go out to their local community and they get the local turkey people to give turkeys, the local vegetable shop to give vegetables, the local blah to give blah, the local electric shop to give blah. Some rich businessman or woman or person wants to give iPads to 40 people for their Christmas dinner, 40 iPads, right? That's what that group of people do who start meeting now, right? Look, we've got a how-to guide. The model works. It started in 2013 in one city. It's now last year was in 17 cities across the United Kingdom. Really? So, and each one of them does it on their own. So, for example, when Leeds did a fundraiser last year, which was basically a dinner, they invited the legal companies in the city. They invited the Lord Mayor who came. Then somebody from Emmerdale said they would do the auction. Then somebody from a hotel said they would give hotel tickets for the auction. It's the power of community, but most importantly, it's giving people a reason to do something good for somebody who needs it. And when you say to people, child leaving care Christmas Day, they get it. They get what happened to me, which was that I remembered that everybody was going back to their own dysfunctional families on Christmas Day. And the closer the day came, the more I realized I was coming closer to everything that I'd never had. Right. So in other words, Christmas became the worst day of the year for me, emotionally.
Right. Was that...
I didn't necessarily want to be a visitor at somebody else's Christmas either.
Right.
That would only accentuate my feelings. Okay, right. So I know that I sound like I'm not giving you anywhere to go for a child at Christmas who may want to come to your house, and they bloody invite them. But I'm just trying to show you the emotional impact yeah, on that day for that child is not, you can't overly love a child on Christmas Day, because there will be a day that they're alone after it.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is always acknowledge that they will be alone the day after. So if you invite a child for Christmas, it's literally a dog is not for Christmas. If you invite a child in care to your house for Christmas and think you're doing something good, acknowledge that they're going to be left alone after it.
Yes.
Sorry, I don't know why I got onto that, but
no, and it makes perfect sense, because often we do things, but we don't see. I think Wendy was talking about the hidden need and the express need, and
hidden need, yeah.
Yeah, and so look at what may be going on for the child. You're doing something great, and yes, accepting, but think about the aftermath, or what may be going through that child's mind. Like you just said, being invited to somebody else's house for Christmas, the impact or the feelings and the thoughts that brings up.
Wow, it's massive. It's
Yeah.
massive. That's why we do Christmas dinners, because often the kids, they're not around us. That's why when we do Christmas dinners, for example, we get volunteers on the day, and they're all DBS checks, etc., etc. All standards have to be higher. You know, the group that I said that meets in September and October, they're your friends. If any one of you wanted to do this, then what you would do is call your friends, and you would find that one of your friends knows a social worker, or one of your friends knows somebody who works in safeguarding. They end up coming to it, you know, because it basically, that group of people that start meeting in September, October, they become friends. Yeah. And basically, in the dark nights of winter, this group of wizards and witches conjure up food, a meal, an incredibly designed room. I mean, from nothing.
Yeah.
And I've seen it happen 17 times, and it, you know, more than 17 times. I know it can happen.
Brilliant. I'm going to stop you there, but I don't want you to go, because after we finish, just like to have a chat with you.